So welcome back, everybody. We're continuing in chapter 39. Now we're holding on page Nun Gimel, which is the 53rd page. In the original text, you could see it as well in the corresponding text. The corresponding English text, and we're holding Ach Misha Shedesh Nishmasei. And again, as we do every week, especially for newcomers, to generally have the ability to access all the previous classes. For that matter, from the very beginning of Tanya, you could see it on this very site. Just to put in the link box Tanya, or on the TanyaOnline.com website again. The same hosts with the ability to follow with the text all the previous classes. And regarding this very chapter, I believe it's quite a few classes into this very chapter. So to get a flow, have an understanding and some clarity of what the message of this chapter is, just invite everybody to go to this website, or to find it in this very website, or again on the TanyaOnline.com website. And it's also easy to follow with the text accordingly. And but we'll get, as usual, we give some bit back, recap of what we learned the last week in order to be able to continue with an easy flow into this week's class. So basically the Alter Rebbe, we could do this really in brief. The Alter Rebbe speaks about that very unique type of Avodah, which is really not the norm, the Avodah of the Merkava, similar to Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. And it's not only appreciating Elokus, deriving pleasure of Elokus, the godly reality of Elokus, of God, godliness. Neheni, like the Neshamas and Gan Eden, Neheni Miziv Shechina. It's appreciating, it's benefiting, again, deriving pleasure, delight of the Ziva, the Shechina. It's much deeper than that. They're so overwhelmed by their connection to Lukus is not in a way that they understand. They have an understanding which would lead to appreciation, which would lead to a pleasure, nehning, to have a pleasure of the Ziva Shechina. But it's a type of avodah where the individual, and again, clearly it's tzaddik, someone who's really on a very high level, and that's why he uses the obvious Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov as a paradigm for this type of avodah, that they are so in tuned to the Ein Sof, to the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as we mentioned last week, when you have the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a full state of manifestation, you cannot say that there is a hana'ah, because hana'ah is when there is a certain amount of, when you say someone has a hana'ah from something, we gave the example, rain. You have a hana'ah of the rain because it doesn't come in its full force. If rain came in its full force, which means the same water came pouring down, similar to we have to the flood, which is the mabul. It's the same water. If water is blessing, what was wrong with the mabul? The problem is that you want to have a no appreciate something, right? The famous story with Chayni Hamagol. It has to be with a perfect measurement in order for me to have a no. When you say measurement, in order for me to have pleasure and benefit from it. But when you say measurement, it means to say it's a measured amount of rain. Measured means to say it's modudu mugbal, it's limited, it's measured, and that's the only way I can have a no. So when we say the neshamis avelam abriya, neshamis which are in el abriya as a result of their avodah, they belong to Gan Eden Ha'elin. Like again, these are terms and explanations which we took the time in the previous weeks to explain and elaborate. And again, you can go back to those classes to see them. And so when you say the neshama, it's even in Gan Eden Ha'elin and Neheni Miziv Shechina, that itself says it's a measured amount of elokus, of godliness, which trickles down to them in order for them to have a no. Because if Hashem would reveal Himself the way He is, the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't have a no. It's overwhelming. You stand in a complete state of bittul, self-nullification. A complete state of self of not I have hana. When you say I have hana, it means to say I could still remain intact with my complete composure. Have hana means to say this which is coming to me is a measured amount of elokus in this case, and therefore I have pleasure of it. As opposed to the whole Ein Sof is complete. I'm in tune to the Ein Sof, the way Hashem is for Himself, by Himself. Namely, we use Atzilus, even though Atzilus cannot be the Ein Sof Himself. It's a world which hosts the Ein Sof. The way Ein Sof basically is, even though the Alter Rebbe, if you remember, last week we pointed out the Alter Rebbe says Kol Kach, because the Ein Sof cannot be also associated with an Olam HaAtzilus, because an Olam is Hamlash and Hela Behester. And it cannot be that Elokus Ein Sof Kamesha, who is about Chochmah, Bina, Das, Gvura, Chesed, Gvura, and so on. Because Hashem transcends, Ein Sof transcends even that. But generally we do say Atzilus does host, Atzilus represents the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when the Ein Sof is revealed, there's no Nehni Mizeh Vashchin, there's no I. It's a complete bittul, a complete loss of the I. And at that point, what is obvious is the Ein Sof, and again that's what Alter Rebbe uses the paradigm of Avraham and Yaakov. They were called a Merkava, as we explain, a Merkava, because we explain by the Merkava the chariot, and as much as it takes the person from point A to point B, when the person virtually cannot do on his own, that's why he takes the chariot, is because the chariot has no mitzias. It's nothing about the chariot. The chariot is completely batil, completely stands in complete submissiveness and self-nullification to the reichav, to the rider. And that's why the obvious were called, the Brahmins of Yaakov were called Merkava Lelukus, because all their days and everything about them, Kol Yemeim is Lashon of the Alter Rebbe, was a Merkava, which means the reichav, they were a Merkava to the reichav, which was God, wanted to go from point A to point B, had certain objectives to implement in this very Elam Hazeh, to demonstrate the Lukus into this very physical world, and all the liking, simply to demonstrate His presence, His reality in this very physical world. Avraham Avinu becomes the Merkava to a Lukus, to the Reichav, meaning to say that I'm just here for you. It's nothing about myself. Avraham Tzadiak is with a complete self-nullification. It wasn't about them in no form or fashion, and therefore that is similar to one's Aveda, which is naturally a very special Aveda, a very unique Aveda, something very different, that he completely is in tune to the Ein Sof, and therefore everything is about him. Again, this Tzaddik Eved Hashem is about a Merkava Lukus, meaning to say a chariot, meaning to say when someone has no mitzias, it's not I have a no, there's no I, there's no no, because he's in tune to the overwhelming Ein Sof, the infinite presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, we did initially, the week even before, we said that the Aveda associated with Elam Abriya, which is Gan Eden Ha'elyon, that is seen to be that the highest, the quintessential Aveda. But last week again we introduced the special Aveda, and the reason why I introduced it is because the Alter Rebbe wants to tell you clearly that it can't be that the climax of Avodas Hashem would be someone who still associates, there's still the I, again even the most subtle level, the fact that I have a no from Ziv HaShechina, from the Ziv HaShechina, from the ray of the divine presence is still an I, and it cannot be that would be the highest level of Avodas Hashem, because it's about if it's about God, it's about not about me at all, in no form or fashion, even in the most subtle levels and manners. The true Aveda must be, the Rebbe has to show this paradigm, which is so unusual, and again it belongs to Avraham Yaakov, as he's going to say, and this is what we're going to learn in today's shir, that it's something which not necessarily we should even go there. So the Rebbe says that the Rebbe must bring it, and saying must bring it, saying the Rebbe brings it here to point out that ideally this is the way it ought to be, because from the perspective of Ein Sof we are not and that ayin in a more subtle level really doesn't exist. But for that, one has to be in tuned to that Ein Sof, to that world of Atzilus. But not everybody has the ability to attain that Aveda. But yet, that we can appreciate that in essence, from the perspective of Elokus, from the perspective of the Ein Sof, this is the way it should really be. But today's, and again, but yet, as we begin in today's class again, you could see it on it's pretty much the middle of the page, a bit over the middle of the page of Nun Gimel, the 53rd page. Achmi sheshedish nishmasei koton mehachel aveda tamazu. Somebody, which is again the average yid, would be the shedish, the source of his neshama, is to koton literally means small, which means it cannot contain this complete Aveda, libatel or licholel be'eri yisbarach, to be completely annulled and completely consumed into the infinite light of HaKadosh, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'avedasei, with his service b'kvius, on a constant basis, rakli prokim v'itim, just from infrequent times, which means periodically. Even someone who has the important Aveda corresponding to Elam Abriya, which we learned the 2 weeks before, which is able to constantly arouse a passionate Ava v'yira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, love and fear, as we explained based on his Beinanus. Periodically, the same Yid, which is not aligned and is not the type of Yid which serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, corresponding to the world of Atzilus, again, similar to the others, even that Yid periodically has some inspiration or some identifies with that Aveda, as he gives an example, the Tefillah of Shemina Esrei, the Tefillah, the prayer of Shemina Esrei. If you remember, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we learned about the Neshamas of Elam HaYetzirah, which serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Ava v'yira Tivis, natural, have the bonus to go up to Elam Abriya. And again, we said the reason why. How do they have that bonus, as opposed to the Malachim, which do not have the bonus? Because we said again, they're given this bonus because they do their Avodah despite the Neshama is invested in a body and in this very physical world, as opposed to the Malachim and so on. Here he says, not as a bonus, he says as a matter of fact, these Neshamas, which go even a higher level, not only corresponding to Elam Abriya, but even the Neshamas which are associated with Elam Abriya, again, they have the constant Beinanus in Elokus, which produce a passion in Ava v'yira, love and fear. They, as a matter of fact, they go up, they also periodically experience the experience of Atzilus, and he gives an example, but yet, again, they're in infrequent basis, it's not who they are, because that Aveda Tama, that complete Aveda, corresponding to the world of Atzilus, is not something normal. It's not the norm. It's something very special, very unique. Again, he identifies it with the Aveda of Avraham of Yaakov. But he says, as a matter of fact, that periodically they are in tune to that level, which is, again, he uses the example Shemina Esrei, which we know and we can appreciate as we all identify the difference of Shemina Esrei and Kriya Shema. Sometimes we feel that Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which comes through the Aveda or the Hachana, the preparation of Birchas Krishma. And again, the Chachamim precisely established Shachris with a whole system, like it says, Sulam Mutzav Artzo V'Reishim Magiya Shamayim. The experience of davening is like a ladder, which is Mutzav Artzo and Reishim Magiya Shamayim. When a person climbs a ladder, and again, this is used as a term used identifying davening corresponding to the Sulam of Yaakov Avinu, and then this is it's mutzav artza. Person gets up in the morning, he's very much mutzav artza, like the famous Gemara in Berachos, al tikra b'mel b'ma. The person is everything else but a merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the morning, the person gets up, it's all about himself. That's why he's not supposed to do anything before davening, because whatever he's going to do and engage with this physical world, it might bring him down. A person has to have kayach, to elevate, to do his avodah, to elevate everything he is going to come in contact with throughout the entire day. But this is his purpose in Elam Hazeh, to elevate everything in Elam Hazeh, to make it a dida leis baruch, a dwelling place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it gets him in the morning, if he's going to engage to any anything, if it's eating, or any engagement within the Yadi Elam has in worldly affairs and reality, or world connection to world reality, or world affairs, anyway, and again, in any form or fashion, he's going to engage with Inyane Ha'elam. Inyane Ha'elam, world will bring him down because he's not refined, he's not in a level, he's very much Mutzav Arza, he's anchored in Eretz. And this is the unique gift that Kodesh Baruch Hu gives us on a daily basis, that we're able to climb the ladder of davening, climb the rungs, one rung after the other, in order to refine ourselves, to elevate ourselves, that we should be the perfect emissary, in order that post-davening we can come into Olam, and step into Olam and elevate everything of Olam, and Chas v'Shalom Olam, the world, again, the real world reality should not bring us down. We're to the contrary, we elevate Kol Inyan Olam, and we have to have the kayach, we have to have the right stature in order to be able to do this unique shlichus. That's again the point of davening, that Reishe, we have the ability to reach Shamayim, Sulam Mutzav Arzav Bereishe Megia Shamayim, and again this is with precision, and why the Chachamim established Shachris with many rungs, Birchas HaShachar and Korbanos and Psuki de Zimah, like to explain in Sifrei Chassidus and Kabbalah and Sifrei Chassidus and Sifrei Musar, the point of these different stages, these different rungs in this Sulam, which is Psuki de Zimah, and then Birchas Krishma, and then he comes Krishma Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He's consumed into the Achdus of Hashem, into the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then he stands, and he gets up and stands down in Shemini Esrei. And sometimes, again, in this this is the climax, this is the top, this is the pinnacle of davening, which is naturally Shemini Esrei. Shemini Esrei, that's the Shemaim, and that's where the person really becomes the Yisali Shachir. A person davens like the way Torah wants him to daven. So like by Nevi'im, Yisali Shachir, Meberta Ander Mensch. It's not even something so spiritual. If we really exercise a true healthy davening, it's a different person before davening and after davening. And without becoming a tzaddik or holy person, he tuned in to this very gift of davening in a way that he exercised. He utilized this special gift that he climbed rung after rung. He reaches Shamayim, which is not usually, again, the pinnacle of davening, which is Shemini Esrei. So sometimes we find ourselves believing, or sometimes we feel strongly about the Shema Yisrael, that we climb Birchas Krishma, and then we all say Shema Yisrael. The person says again, namely it's talking about himself, Shema Yid, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, in order for us to internalize, to absorb the message of Hashem Echad. And many times, and apparently one would say, what do we have to go on to Shemini Esrei? Obviously we have to ask Hashem for our requests, and again, which is what Shemini Esrei is all about. But if you're talking about the Reish Magia Shamayim, that's Krishma or Shemini Esrei. For after Krishma, with all the excitement of Krishma, again, we get up and we stand for Shemini Esrei. We stand up for Shemini Esrei. And we know that is ultimately the highest level of davening. What is the difference between the two? But the difference becomes very obvious. When we have Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, it's about me to some degree. And again, we're talking about these subtle levels, because the whole point of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is not about me, it's about Hashem Echad. But in the end, it's Shema Yisrael Her Yid Zayin Hizbeinin. Shema is also Lashon Hizbeinin. Understand, it's not only hear, physically hearing, or rather hearing, it's about pondering and meditating on the fact that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, but still Shema Yisrael, V'ohavta, you should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And similar, if you want to look at these different levels, which we spoke about in this very chapter, it's similar to the Aveda corresponding to Elam HaBriya. It's about His Beinenus of Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and which again follows through with the V'ohavta, Duzos libam, you shall love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's still me. I am thinking, I am meditating, I am loving Hashem, and so on. And when it comes to HaKadosh, it comes to Shemin, and therefore we can still sit. We don't have the restrictions which we have by davening. There's still somewhat identification with the person's self, even the Eved Hashem, which is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this great important level corresponding to Elam HaBriya. Again, we're using terms we could use to those of you who weren't here. the classes when we spoke about Aveda corresponding to Mabri. You could see it in these very websites. Goes to the previous classes, which we elaborated on this. Again, the difference of the Aveda of the Ilmei Tzira, which is the Aveda, which if a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the natural Avavira, the inherent Avavira, love and fear, as opposed to the Avavira, which comes through his Beinunus, which there you have a quality Avavira, which is a passionate love and a passionate fear. But yet it's still about the Ahavta. Again, subtly. And similar to what we learned over here, that it's a Bri and Elam Atzilus. When it comes, and again, that's why in halacha we don't have we have certain restrictions, like yirmaz be'einav, yikras b'svasav, or the yirmaz b'svasav, the yikras be'einav. One of the two, the Shulchan Aruch says a person that does have restrictions about Krishma, what he can do, what he cannot do. Certainly, when it comes to chas v'shalom, interrupting with words, even there's a whole set of halachas. But nothing close to the restrictions which we have by Shemoneh Esrei. And the answer is because by Shemoneh Esrei it's not about me. Even me who is understanding and appreciating and the Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and even the me which is loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it comes to Shemoneh Esrei, it's all about HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Baruch Atah Hashem. It's about the Atah. And that's what we stand by Shemoneh Esrei ki abdei kamemara. Like a servant in front of his master, that there is nothing, first of all we stand. It's not about a certain siyashvus settlement sitting. It's about a standing, means even externally, when an Eved wants to stand in front of his Adin or demonstrate his complete submission in front of his master, he doesn't remain in a state of sitting, and he stands like a servant or a subject in front of the king, or someone of great importance. You stand, which is again that in its own it's a demonstration of bittul. Yet that you together you have all the halachas, all the restrictions that a person can't do anything in the Shemoneh Esrei. But namely, it's all because what Shemoneh Esrei is all about. It's all about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Atah Hashem. And true, I'm identified with things that I need. For the cure, the Baruch Hashanim, the Yid needs, this is the point of the Shemoneh Esrei, that I have all my set of needs, and the Yid comes with a whole list, again, the Baruch Hashanim, and individually and collectively, in Kabetz Nitchamis, or whatever the Shemoneh Esrei is all about. But in the end, but together with that, and to a certain extent is identifying with myself, because if I have needs, means to say there's me who has these needs. No, but Shemoneh Esrei is all about you, demonstrating that it's about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're the only one who can do all this. And everything is in your hands. If it's the refuah, if it's the birchas hashanim, and so on and so forth. And if it's slach lon, and if it's chein and adas, and so on. It's ato chein and lodam das. It's all about the ato. It's all about the you. The needs, the specific needs, this is again a result, just to hold on to something in the Elam Hazagashmi, to make it real, that it's about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that even something which seems to be so trivial, or so something which is not only on the spiritual level, but even on the Gashmistika level, to make a reform, to make a change in this very physical world. And then when it comes to anything which again comes to refuah, comes to Birchas Hashanim, or whatever, or any other of the Shemoneh Esrei brachas, and we say that it's about you. You can make that reform. You can make that change. So if you think about what Shemoneh Esrei is, this is all a Pa'il Yotze. It's ultimately, it's like you have the warhead. What are you? It's the energy of the missile. You're putting on a particular type of warhead. And the same thing, the missile over here. This is the energy of Shemoneh Esrei. It's about the complete submissiveness, the complete submission, and the complete bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why by Shemoneh Esrei a person stands like a servant in front of the master. Then there is the way it is expressed. We say that because it's about you, and therefore it can make a difference in the Birchas Hashanim, or therefore the Kinitchei Kabetz Nitchei Yisrael, or all the other Shemoneh Esrei brachas which we daven and we ask. That is the cap which we put on, which again we ask Hashem obviously to reflect. But in the end, we're trying to say, Hashem, it's about you. You're the only one who can make the difference. As we know, again, this is a number of places, the two dimensions of Shemoneh Esrei. But namely what the message of Shemoneh Esrei, and therefore the way, even halachically, that a person has to seclude himself from everything, in the times, in the 5-10 minutes which he davened Shemoneh Esrei, because it's about the Baruch Atah, it's about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which that's obviously tantamount to everything we said about Atzilus. That it's not about I understand, I appreciate, I have a love to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's only about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the experience of Shemoneh Esrei. And that, obviously, again, based on just to go back to what we said before, what is the difference between the two? Which one is the highest level of davening? It's Shema or it's Shemoneh Esrei? No, they're two separate messages, and they're both important. Because it's only because like similar to any ladder, you cannot come to the higher rung of the ladder before you pass the one before. You must go through the Krishma, in other words, this service which corresponds to Elam Abriya, the Isbeininus in HaKadokus, and which produces a true passion and Avaviyira in order to you to understand, there's an Eibishter, then a person stands with a complete capitulation, a complete submission, a complete self-state, an overt, manifest state of self-nullification of the experience of Shemoneh Esrei. It's only about you, it's not even about me in the most subtle levels. And obviously, again, that's the Atzilus type of expression. Again, everything we learned about Atzilus in the previous week, which we again point out over here, we don't need to elaborate. So it says, not everybody can reach the level of Atzilus, the Atzilus type of Aveda, or the Aveda corresponding to Ilum Atzilus. Similar, again, as we explained the week before, which the Alter Rebbe uses as a paradigm, the Abraham Mitzvah Yaakov, they were Merkava L'Elokus, not only Shemoneh Esrei, around 24 hours a day. They stood with this very unique bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, state self-nullification to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in their service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the average person, he says, not everybody, that's what he begins over here. Even Seven Sheish and Shmosei doesn't have the ability to reach this Aveda Tama, this complete Aveda, to stand with this concept of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only in frequent basis. He says, per prokim v'itim shemeis ratzon l'mayla, which is again an eis ratzon l'mayla, as we know, with the time of davening b'chlal. It's not only where we invest, it's a special window it opens up from the heavens above, in order that the person should be able to tune in to that very, very, with that very unique connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when it comes to Shemoneh Esrei, there is not only my identification with you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it says that window gives it a stretch open even a bit more, that there could be that intimate connection with the Yid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem, it's all about you. And that's again the Tefillah Shemoneh Esrei, which is again B'Achshu B'Atzilus, as again, as we just explained, this is in Atzilus, which is in Atzilus, which means this is the identification with Elam Atzilus, or B'Frat B'Shtachavois Shebo, particularly when the person bows down, prostrates himself within Shemoneh Esrei, which we know again, halachically, the 4 times we bow down to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, every Shtachavo is again in the level of Atzilus. We don't have to elaborate. This is the same Nekuda. It's not about me. It's completely about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, namely when the person bows down, which is another level within Shemoneh Esrei itself, of his complete people. It's about complete, again, a negation of self, negating himself. And then it's about, which is again the idea of someone bowing down to another, the whole idea of bowing down, prostration, means to say, I lost it completely. It's not only about me, but it's even externally. It's an even external demonstration of a complete self-negation, a self-bittul, a self-nullification. So within Shemoneh Esrei, is certainly the level of Atzilus. Like it's brought Peretz Chaim in where he deals and explains the chapter associated with Kabbalah Shabbos. Because the experience of Shemoneh Esrei, the experience, especially the Shtachavois Shebo, the times that we bow down, that is the bittul, in the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is choshev kamei kilo mamosh, when the person even externally appreciates in his state of insignificance, and it comes out b'chitzenius b'goli, it comes out even again externally, and even in a revealed manner, how everything in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is truly non-existent. And that is the experience, and that's the whole Tanu of Shemoneh Esrei. It's about you and completely nothing else exists. Again, particularly when it comes to the Shtachavois Azai, Gam Kiniki Kvis Nishmasi B'Olam Habriya, this very same Yid that even periodically his Aveda identifies with Aveda B'Olam Hatzilus, but overwhelmingly, his neshama, his ikar al kviyas, in other words, whereas his establishment as a neshama corresponds to the world of Bria, not Atzilus. Again, he's still not on the level of Ram Yitzchak Yaakov, because that is very unique, and that really that doesn't belong to every single Yid. The maximum the Yid could reach, that should be in a way of kviyus, in a way of permanency, which in itself, again, as we learned the previous week, is a very special Aveda. That the person's Aveda should be bikviyus on a permanent basis, and the type of Aveda which corresponds to Elam Habriya. And again, that's why he ends up in Elam Habriya and Gan Eden Ha'elyon. And that is, again, on its own, a very unique and special Aveda. That's pretty much the Aveda which the average person could reach, even though he himself periodically experiences the Aveda corresponding to Elam Hatzilus. But namely, bikviyus nishmasi is Elam Habriya in the world of Briya. As again, he mentions this brackets from time to time. His neshama will ascend to Elam Hatzilus b'chinas man. We're not going to go into it. We had it in the past, based on how much he arouses his identification with the Ein Sof. Hashem himself, as we just said as well, correspondingly opens a window and is able to have that, so to say, the few moments of complete connection, intimacy, which again, one loses himself again in the overwhelming presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is again the spirit experience of Atzilus, but it's just liprakim, infrequent basis, namely bikviyus. His Aveda identifies with Elam Habriya. Here the Alter Rebbe goes on again with the same spirit. In his Chai mitzvah, the reward of every mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, as we explained in the previous, in this very chapter, when it came to the Alter Rebbe explaining of the point of Nehni Miziv Ashchina. This neshama stands in Gan Eden, maybe Gan Eden Atach, and there he spoke about Gan Eden Ha'elyon, or even again he spoke about both levels, Gan Eden Atach and Gan Eden Ha'elyon, that the Teira and Aveda connects to the spheres of the Eilam and the Neshama, which stands in the Eichalos in these chambers, and Neni, that's the point, Neni Miziv Ashchina, Schar Mitzvah Mitzvah, from what you accomplish, the ray of this Shekhinah, the divine presence, again, of the Teira of Aveda, which connects to the spheres of every Eilam. The Neshama stands in different chambers within that Eilam. Again, that Eilam, when I say that Eilam, meaning to say the world of its Yitzira or Bria, the corresponding to his Aveda. If it was Avavira Tivis, the natural and inherent Avavira, love and fear, or the Avavira which came through his Beinin, is that clear quality, passionate Avavira. So he stands in the chambers of these Eilamis, and he is nana from the Ziv Teiros Navedas, and the ray of his own Teir and his own Aveda, which connects to the actually spheres of the Eilam. Again, I'm using these terms. If you obviously need to go back there in order to understand it clearly, or look at the text and try to make it out yourself. But it's similarly over here when it comes to the Neshama of Atzilus, the Neshama associated with Atzilus, the Schar is associated with a connection. It connects to the world of Atzilus because that's the type of Aveda, again, those unique, that unique Aveda associated with those unique tzaddikim, special tzaddikim. And it should be schar and muhus, from the schar, from the reward, you understand muhusa madrigasa, the level of that Aveda. Again, based on what we said then, similarly when it comes to Elam Hatzilus. From the Aveda and from the Mahus and the Madrega, which means from the level, the level of the Aveda, you understand, or rather from the reward of it, which is the experience of Atzilus, you understand the Aveda. What is the Aveda? The Aveda is the bittul, a stand, rather than Aveda Hashem, out of complete self-nullification. And be kviyas on a permanent basis, which again, understandably, that's unique and that's related to tzaddikim hagdelim. Similar, again, he uses the lashon of uses the example of the aves. But ein lanu esek b'nistaris. The average yid not necessarily should believe that he can ever go there. Hashem wants to establish, to enhance the relationship, to elevate him to such a level. Perhaps one day he'll identify, he'll be able to understand it. He'll be able to rather appreciate, or at that point, he will know. Again, the truth of the matter is, if you reach that Aveda, you will know it's not about you at all. But somewhat, It's a different, it's something which we can't even identify. That's what he calls it nistois. It's hidden levels. It's not something which we even believe that we could, in our own, achieve this Avodah, which is the Avodah, again, of the Merkava, the Bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, corresponding to Elam Atzilus, on a kvius, on a permanent basis. we don't have the ASIC, we can't occupy ourselves with nistois, things which are hidden, which is transcendent of the norm, which again, these are tzaddikim magdelim, these great tzaddikim, shein b'chidas merkava, which they are, their whole life is a merkava l'Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is the chariot, again, as we explain what this term means. What is revealed to us, that after this Aveda, everyone ought to draw himself to. And the average person, even somebody who wants to have a quality type of relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his aspiration should be the Aveda, which corresponds to Eilam Habriya, which is again on a constant basis, b'kviyus, a constant connection on his mind of the gadlus, of the greatness of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, and not only again in a superficial manner, but again in a very with a constant pondering and a constant meditation on this, that it should touch the core of his heart, means to say it should produce a quality out of the Yira, and that it should have a passionate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which on its own, as we said the week before, that is a very special and unique type of Aveda on its own, but namely that is something that is attainable to every single Yid. Even someone wants to have the maximum type of relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the most profound and the most qualitative relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't search in these stories. Don't try to identify yourself with, I'm becoming a Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. That is very unique, that someone should be the Merkava to Lukus B'Kvius on a permanent basis. That's not that is. He could consider Nistoris, which is again associated with the Tzaddikim Agdalim. What Achareim Kol Adam Yimshech, that everyone could and should draw himself after, is Leiden Emono, Mehus Madregas Avedas Hashem, to know, and again, the level of Avodas Hashem b'tchilu r'chibu, to be honest, meaning to say, to have that clarity of that knowledge of the type of Avodas Hashem, with tchilu r'chimu, which is fear and love, which is galus libay, which again corresponds to Elam Abriya, a passionate love, a passionate fear, hanim shachis min abina v'das b'gdulus Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which come from the knowledge or the understanding and knowledge in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, das is a very important component of our intellectual faculties, which is Lashon HaZeir, is Maftecha de Kol Shis. It's a key which includes all 6 midas, meaning to say that in order that there should be a passionate Avaviyah, you need the das. You could see it in the end of chapter Gimel, the 3rd chapter, which you can easily access on the TanyaOnline.com or this website, or on the TanyaOnline.com. You just scroll down to chapter 3 towards the last part of chapter 3, the Alter Rebbe, it points out the importance, the essentiality of utilizing the 3rd faculty of intellect, of our intellect, of our intellectual faculties, not only the Chachma, Bina, the wisdom, the understanding, but namely the knowledge, the das, which obviously there's different terms to it, but this is classically the translation given to Chachma, Bina, das, which is again that 3rd faculty, which is the only way, in other words, that is the transition, or that is that dimension of our that important dimension of our intellectual faculties, which produce an Avaviyah, which able to produce a true love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a true love and fear, not I am a Oav Hashem and I am a Yarei Hashem and put this is my badge and look at me and so on. A true feeling of passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a true feeling of reverence to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One needs das, because again das is Lashon Iskashrus, not only because Seichel by definition is transcendent. In order to produce Avaviyah, one needs das. It brings the Lashon Adam Yodes Chava, because it's knowledge and knowledge, knowing and knowing. Das is again the intellectual faculty within our which is the which produces, again, that is not only the comprehensive understanding associated with Bina, but it's the das. That's why he adds over here the das, Because the Yadaita Hayai Vashavesa Ladacha, in order to be Vashavesa Ladacha, to produce Ava V'yira, a true, fiery, booming Ava V'yira, it has to be Yadaita as opposed to Chochma or Bina V'hevanta and so on. So in this case also because he's producing Aveda Shabiz with Atchil Chim, he's Galus Libay. And again, we reveal the dimension of his heart, which means a true, fiery, passionate Ava V'yira, which comes from Bina V'das Bidul Sin Sabarach, which comes not only in understanding but in the knowledge, in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be He. V'kaim B'yud Sfiris de Bria. His place is again in the Yud Sfiris, in the 10 Sfiris of Bria. And then the lower level, which is Aveda B'Chiluchim Ativim, which is the service, which is with Yira V'Ava, which is the inherent Yira V'Ava Shemameichi, which is in his mind. This again is the Yud Sfiris, the Yitzira, like we explained in the previous weeks, the difference of the inherent love and fear or the passionate love and fear, which comes through a clear, he's Beinanus, a clear understanding, appreciation of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which produces this Ava V'yira, which again the former is the Elamai Yitzira, which means the former again in this very the inherent Ava V'yira associated with the Elamai Yitzira, and the passionate Ava V'yira, which comes through his Beinanus, the Gulus in Baruch Hu, the Bina, the Das, and the Gulus in Baruch Hu, its place in the Elamai Bria. However, and therefore, this is what a person should aspire to, or the lower level, which is obviously more attainable, or even the higher level. It's a higher level, and it takes again the effort of on a constant basis to have the connection of that appreciation of the Gedula Saint Baruch Hu. And in order again to produce this passionate Ava V'yira, it's something which is in a very important level, in a very high level, but nonetheless an attainable level which is attainable to every single yid. And that's what he says, Achareim Kol Adamim Shech, as opposed to that Aveda associated with El Matzilus, that's the unique to the Tzadikim Agdelim. However, now you have to contrast that this is Achareim Kol Adamim Shech, this is where we ought to draw ourselves to. However, Aveda B'lei say is Tchilul Chimu, our service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without arousing any fear, without arousing any love, even the natural inherent Tchilul Chimu, even the natural and inherent love, the fear and love, feel the Mechi, even again consciously looking as Gilui, the Hainula Eiravativus, even in a way. In other words, like not even in a way that to arouse the natural inherent love of the society's belief, which is hidden in the heart of every yid, to bring it out from a state of concealment to a state of manifestation again. Not in a way of a passionate love, but just the latter, the inherent love. Not even that, even not in the hidden dimension of his heart, which is again the inherent, the innate love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it remains deep in his heart the way it was again as a yid, the way he's born with it, but he doesn't even bring it minimally onto the surface, meaning to say he doesn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu even with his inherent love and fear, and it remains as it was before the Aveda. So this service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, even though he learns Torah, even he does Torah mitzvahs, because he's not even able to extract even that inherent Ava V'yira, so that service remains, doesn't even ascend to Elam HaYitzira. It remains in Elam HaPirud, in a world of separation, which is again associated with Elam HaSiyah. As we know, again, the four worlds, Atzilus Bri Yitzir Asiyah. Again, from top down, Atzilus Bri Yitzir Asiyah. Because then there was no elevation to the Aveda at all. He didn't even arouse the Ava V'yira Ativus again, this innate inherent Ava V'yira. It remained in its place exactly the same way as before the Aveda. So the whole Aveda, as Torah and mitzvahs, doesn't even ascend even to the world of Elam HaYitzira. In a way, again, as we explained, in the previous classes, what's the point of Elam HaYitzira and Elam Bria comes in, it elevates itself and so on. So additional to everything what he says over there, and again, it's synonymous with whatever we learned in this very chapter, is that it comes closer to within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like in every relationship. If you want to have with another person, in every relationship, a person wants to have, and again, a healthy relationship that doesn't remain robotic. Someone wants to give a gift, he's not the messenger which gives the gift, which then there's no connection between the recipient of the gift and the messenger, the mailman who drops that certificate, for example, the $500 certificate. There is no connection with the messenger or the mailman, even though he's the one who brought it to the door, because by him there was nothing, and there was nothing emotional. There was no passion in that presentation at all. He was just a messenger. So even though he's the one who gave it to you, you received it from that messenger, and that's the way you're able to take it and redeem that certificate. But in the same token, by him it was robotic, meaning to say he just did what he did. And therefore, and that's healthy for that matter, because the point is to connect to the one who did give you that gift, who sent you that gift, who made an effort to get you that gift. And by then, the one who made the effort, you are connecting to, because that's the point of the one who sent it to you. The point is to perpetuate or to maintain that emotional relationship. So not only that you look at the fact that they took the certificate, they put an envelope, they put a stamp, they put it in the mail, but no, it was the heart went into it, and because it was the heart went into it, so the gift is not only doesn't remain the gift, but it touches a deeper part within you to reciprocate or again in the enhancement of the relationship of you and the receiver of the sender of the gift, as opposed to the messenger who just brings the gift. You don't connect in an emotional level to the messenger, even though he is the one who physically brought it to you. And the same thing over here. In the end of the day, it's the Aveda, it's the Teda we learn, and the mitzvahs we do. But if there's no passion at all, it remains in Elam HaPirud. It remains on ground level. It doesn't come in within a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It doesn't even enter, not elevated to Elam HaYetzirah, certainly not to Elam HaBriya. That's what he says. If there is no passion, or there is no Aveda at all, not only the passionate Aviyir, the inherent Aviyir doesn't even come to the surface in minimally. So then the Avida is there, but it remains at ground level. It remains in Elam HaPirud. It remains in this very physical world. It's called Chitzenis Elamis, the externality, the external of Elamis, which is again, which is usually Elam HaSi as opposed to Elam HaYetzirah. It doesn't even ascend. Similar again to the example we gave, where the messenger brings it. There's nothing which connects the individual, the recipient, with the messenger. It shouldn't, because the point is to connect with the one who gave the gift, which to the person who gave the gift, it wasn't only a physical delivery or a physical sending, or sending associated with the physical effort, but again, there was a lot of heart and passion put into it, so therefore when you receive it, it's not only receiving the gift, the gift has touched a deeper dimension within you. Not only you're able to go redeem a $500 certificate, as an example, and it touched a deeper part within you, and then you reciprocate again in the context of enhancement of this relationship. Similar to the Kodesh Baruch Hu, there has to be a bit of feeling in order that the Torah mitzvahs should ascend to within a Kodesh Baruch Hu, at least to the world, again, in association with the world of Elam HaYetzirah. If not, it remains in Elam HaPirud, if there is no Aviyah at all. It remains on ground level. There's no ability of this Torah mitzvahs to ascend and become one with the yichud, be yichude in the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shein es sfiras hakdeshus, which these are the holy sfiras, like we learned in the previous classes. Like it says in Tikkunim, which is again another part of Zerich, like Parcha. Without Aviyira, it doesn't soar on high, it doesn't ascend on high, make him Kadam Hashem. It cannot ascend and stand in front of Hashem. What does that mean? This is again the quote in Zayar. And namely what he's saying is again, Dr. Rebbe later uses the Lashon, which again brought in Zayar, that it's similar to a bird, in which there is the body of the bird. It could be a healthy bird, but it could be a bird without wings. And it says, you want a famous Mishnah, Nikla Agapeh Ksheda. Even allowed eating it, it's not possible for you could shech the behemoth without wings. Because the main thing is the healthy body of the bird. The wings, again, if nitlu agapeh in a way that doesn't damage the bird itself, which it could be done, it says, the Gemara says, the Mishnah says it's kosher. Meaning to say that it's about the healthy bird. The wings are the part of the bird which allows the bird to soar on high. And similarly, it says, Lashon Zayir, it says, Av Yira are called Gatfi, they're called wings to which elevate the Torah mitzvahs on high. On high, what does it mean on high? Closer within to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the example we just gave. L'meikem kodem Hashem, to touch HaKadosh Baruch Hu, l'solko. So if it's Av, there's wings, so the Aveda, which is again corresponds to the bird, which is the Ikir, which is the body of the bird, the main thing is the Torah mitzvahs. In the end of the day, between the Av of the Yin and the Torah mitzvahs, so obviously the body of the bird is more important than its wings. Without the wings, without the body, what are the wings picking up? And the same thing, a person has the ability to do mitzvahs or find the Avivir, obviously, eat the matzahs on Pesach, put on the tefillin, and put up the mezuzah, before you even find an Avivir to do it. Because that's the most important. But in order to be so cool and make him Kodem Hashem, it should elevate itself and stand in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just like the bird, it needs the wings. And the wings are, the Gatfin, which are the Avivir. So if it's a healthy set of wings, it flies higher. And if it's not such a healthy set of wings, at least it elevates itself from ground level. And it comes a little even closer to Kodem Hashem. And that means, again, if it's at least the inherent, the innate Avivira, at least it elevates the Torah mitzvahs to some degree. They're corresponding to Eilam Yayitzir, again, within, closer within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's some level of make him Kodem Hashem. And if the wings are healthier, meaning to say the wings, could it be the Avivira, could be an Avivira, which is a passionate Avivira, a love and fear, a quality Avivira, which comes through a structured Yizbeinus, again, not only through my Bina, but through my Das, in the Gdulas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it causes the heart to ignite with an Avivira, which means a healthier wing. So obviously it elevates the Torah mitzvahs. The Torah mitzvahs, the Aveda elevates the Aveda, elevates the Torah, elevates the mitzvahs to a deeper part within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Eilam Abriya. And the Aveda corresponds to Eilam Abriya, so there's more Mekem Kodem Hashem. Have a wonderful evening.